is Erin Taylor. I'm an economic anthropologist. I have a PhD in the subject from the University of Sydney. Over the past few decades, I've done quite a lot of work doing research into financial behaviour, beginning with doing research in a squatter settlement in the Dominican Republic, where I looked into how people invest in their housing. And from there, I got more interested in fintech. So I moved over to looking at the development of mobile money services in Haiti. And from there, got fascinated by how fintech and financial technologies generally are changing around the world and how they might impact people's lives in various ways. So in the beginning, my area of focus was as an academic, but in the last few years, I have been working with my own company, Canela Consulting, and we specialize in doing research in both the area of finance and the area of technology. So the question I asked is whether offering financial service to women is at all sexist. These days, there are actually many services on the market which either include features that are specifically designed for women or which are marketed heavily to women. But you could argue that is actually sexist and that some of them actually just reinforce stereotypes of women as needing their own special help and drawing upon, feminine stereotypes and that kind of thing. So respondents could choose from a range of 5 answers that went from definitely sexist to not sexist at all. I chose this question in particular because it's a topic I've been working on in the past 6 months or so. Along with my colleague Annette Brolos, we produced a report for the European Women Payments Network and Key Innovation, in which we surveyed the products that are available for women on the market today. Those include products in the areas of financial management, investment, insurance, and a couple of others. And we tried to collect information on as many as possible. When we were doing our analysis of these services, we noticed that they differed quite a lot in terms of how they marketed their services to women. So some really presented images of strong women being professional and independent, and others did very much include stereotypical design features such as lots of pink and very feminine images of women and so on and so forth. So that just made me really curious, what does the industry think of this development? How should we be developing financial services for women, if at all? What is the range of what's acceptable? What I thought was that most respondents would actually see this as being somewhat sexist, but probably something we should do anyway. I think most people would be aware that perhaps stereotyping is not a great idea and there are problems with things like excluding men from services. And what we saw in the answers, to a certain extent, confirms my suspicions, but I would like to point out a few things. For me, the most interesting answer was that only 14% of respondents thought that gendered financial products are, in fact, definitely sexist, and believed that all financial products should actually be gender neutral. So that's actually fairly low. And what it means is that a full 86% of people do believe that it's okay to develop gendered financial products. They just differed a little bit in terms of whether they saw them as problematic or not. So out of this group, around half did think that there was some sexism involved. Okay, it might be a little bit sexist or maybe more than a little bit, but kind of okay. And around 35% actually believe that it is not sexist at all to develop these products. And that did surprise me a little bit because I didn't think so many people would see this as being not sexist at all. There is one possible answer for this. My question may have been a little bit misleading or perhaps leading in terms of prompting people to select this answer, because the kind of sub-answer in that question was, well, companies develop gendered financial products all the time. We have clothes for men, clothes for women, cars advertised for men, etc. So it makes logical sense that financial services should be the same, so therefore not sexist. When we look deeper into the responses, we do see some other interesting differences in terms of factors like respondents' ages or their positions in a company. So nearly half of people who were aged between 41 and 50 said that gendered financial services are not sexist at all. But interestingly, respondents who were either older than that or younger did take a different stance and were a little bit split as to whether they thought things were sexist or not. So that was kind of interesting that people in the middle fell into that tendency of not seeing it as sexist. And it made me wonder whether in fact it was due to their job roles in companies, perhaps to the people who are more active in making decisions and they sort of have the more of an urge to kind of push on and get the products developed. It's not entirely clear from the data, but it would be something worth following up on. One thing that is actually really clear in the data is that young people really don't like gender stereotypes at all. They very much voted against using stereotypes such as pink colouring and so on in the development of financial products. Another interesting insight from the data is that board members and other leaders in companies who are perhaps more concerned with the product development, consumer facing, are less likely to see these products as being sexist, or perhaps more accurate to say they're more wanting to push forward with the development. And behind the scenes, people who are less customer facing tend to be more thinking that products should actually be gender neutral. So that kind of makes sense if you think of people working in the development of products behind the scenes doing the tech, the design, may be more likely to just be thinking, well, this is the product we're making for consumers generally, and therefore it should be able to suit as broad a market as possible. One trend in the data that I thought was pretty interesting but completely logical is that people working in payments tend to believe that services should be gender neutral. And to me, that makes 100% sense, because if you think about payments, like the whole history of payments is that money should be neutral. Payments need to be neutral in order to work. Like cash is not gendered. EFTPOS machines are not gendered. You know, why would you have gendered payment products? One slight exception to that is that if you look at products that are sort of point of sale credit products, which are a kind of payment product, they can be gendered. So for example, in the report we produced, we write about Afterpay in Australia. Afterpay is a point of sale credit product that is meant to be for everybody, but it is heavily used by women and marketed to women. So that is just one slight exception in that general trend. Now, in terms of location, the picture is a bit mixed. We could kind of say that what you see is that in the more conservative countries in the world, you have more people arguing that the offering financial services specifically to one gender or another is sexist. But we probably need a little bit more data on that to draw a conclusion. I would love to ask actually a broader question about what is the responsibility of the financial services to develop products for different customer segments more broadly. And by that, I mean especially underserved segments. So over the last few decades, we've had a lot of developments in terms of offering financial services for people who are poor, mostly in lower income countries, not so much in higher income countries. And there's been developed a bit of an idea that that is something that the market can do well. The market is very well positioned to actually be able to create useful products for these underserved groups. Now, the question is, you know, whose responsibility is that? Who pays for it and who should be developing it? What we see with respect to women specifically at the moment is that the founders who are running these companies developing services to women tend to be very passionate and they feel they have a social mission. And so that's what drives them to produce these products. We don't see as much being done in larger companies in terms of trying to serve segments such as women, or perhaps you might think of people who are poor or refugees. And so that's a bit of a lack. And so what I would like to ask the industry is, you know, what is our responsibility? Should all financial service providers be thinking about segmentation, not just in terms of standard demographics, but also in terms of underserved segments as well?
Thanks so much for joining us, Erin, and we look forward to working again.
Thank you.